I could still smell the fresh paint when I stepped inside. The sun was setting through the giant living room windows, casting golden stripes across the hardwood floor. This was my house. My dream. And I had paid for it, in cash. The strangest part? The very same day, I told my entire family I was broke. It wasn't madness. Not exactly. It was something colder, sharper, the kind of decision you make after years of watching people you love show you their ugliest sides when they think you have something to give. My name is Andrew Parker. I'm 43, single, and for most of my adult life, I've been the kind of man who works quietly in the background. I built my money slowly, not through luck, not through gambling or inheritance, but through a transport business I started in my 20s. Long nights, endless logistics problems, unreliable drivers, clients who didn't pay on time. I'd been through all of it. And yet I made it work. Over the years, I invested carefully, diversified, and kept my expenses low. If you met me on the street, you wouldn't know I was wealthy. That was intentional. My family, well, let's just say they had a complicated relationship with money. I have 2 sisters, both younger than me, Emily, 39, and Rachel, 35. And my parents, Margaret and Thomas, both in their late 60s, retired. Growing up, we weren't poor, but we weren't rich either. Dad worked in manufacturing, Mom was a nurse. We had a nice house, food on the table, vacations every few years. But there was always tension. Money was either a whispered worry or a weapon. My parents taught us to be careful with it, but in practice, my sisters took the opposite route. Emily married young, had 3 kids, and spent money like it was burning a hole in her pocket. Designer handbags, emergency, vacations, the latest iPhones for her children before they were even in middle school. She was the type to buy now and figure it out later. Rachel was more calculated, but in some ways worse. She always had a plan for other people's money. A business idea that needed funding. An opportunity that was just too good to pass up. Every time I saw her, there was some angle, some way she could benefit, if only I would step in and help. They weren't cruel sisters, not exactly. But over the years, I began to notice a pattern. When I was doing well, they were warm, friendly, and quick to invite me to dinners or parties. When I mentioned financial struggles, suddenly, their lives got too busy. The moment I decided to test them happened last Thanksgiving. We were all at my parents' house, the dining table crowded with turkey, stuffing, pies, the works. At first, it was the usual holiday cheer. But after a couple of glasses of wine, Emily started talking about how hard things had been for her lately, how she and her husband were barely keeping up with their mortgage. Rachel chimed in with her own tale of financial woe, something about needing capital for a new boutique store idea. I sat there, carving a piece of turkey, listening. And then Rachel said, "You know, Andrew, you've been doing well for years. You could help both of us out. Just a small loan." Emily jumped on it immediately. "Yes. You've always been so responsible with money. It's not like you'd even miss it." I put my fork down. Something in me shifted in that moment. They weren't asking how I was doing. They weren't asking if I could help. They were assuming I would. That night, after dinner, I drove home in silence. The streets were empty, the cold November air seeping through the edges of my car door. I realized I'd spent years letting my family believe I was their safety net. And they'd stopped seeing me as a brother or a son. I was just the wallet. I needed to know, once and for all, who they really were to me. So I came up with a plan. I was already in the process of buying a house, something I dreamed about for years. It was a $500,000 property on the edge of the city, with enough land for a garden and a small workshop. The deal was nearly finalized, and I had enough saved to pay in cash. The idea hit me like a spark. What if I bought the house, and told my family I was broke? Completely broke. No savings. No business left. Nothing. I wanted to see who would stand by me when they thought I had nothing to give. The day I signed the papers, the realtor handed me the keys with a smile. Congratulations, Andrew. Most people can't even imagine buying without a mortgage. I smiled back but said nothing. In my head, I was already planning the next part. The house was perfect: warm hardwood floors, high ceilings, a kitchen that smelled faintly of fresh oak cabinets. The backyard sloped down into a small grove of trees, and the air was quieter than anywhere I'd lived before. It was the kind of place you could build a life in, which made it even more tempting to keep it a secret. 2 days later, I called my family and invited them to my apartment for a serious talk. I kept my voice flat, my tone a little strained. I wanted them to wonder. When they arrived, Emily with a latte in hand, Rachel in her usual designer coat, my parents looking slightly worried, I told them the story I'd prepared. That the transport business had taken a hit. That I'd lost several big contracts. That I'd had to liquidate my investments just to stay afloat. And now, I had nothing. I watched their faces. Emily's eyes flicked to Rachel's almost instantly, a quick, wordless conversation passing between them. Rachel leaned back in her chair, crossed her arms. My father frowned, but my mother just sighed, as if she'd expected this somehow. There were no words of comfort. No. We'll figure this out together. Just silence. And in that silence, I had my first answer. I didn't tell them that, less than 24 hours earlier, I'd wired $500,000 for a house they didn't even know existed. But as I poured myself a glass of water and watched them exchange glances, I decided something. Before this was over, they'd know. And when they did, it would already be too late for them to change how they'd acted. 2 days after I broke the news, my phone went quiet. Normally, Emily would be texting me about some school fundraiser or asking if I wanted to come over for dinner. Rachel would call with a quick question that always led to her pitching me another business idea. My parents would check in at least every other day. Now? Nothing. At first, I thought maybe they were giving me space. But by day 4, it was clear they weren't giving me space. They were pulling away. The first to break the silence was my mother. She called me late in the evening, her voice unusually formal. "Andrew, your father and I have been talking," she began. "We think it might be best if you try to downsize. Sell off whatever you have left, maybe move into something smaller." "Smaller than what, Mom? I'm already in an apartment." "I know, but maybe with a roommate? Just until you get back on your feet." Her words weren't cruel, but there was a distance in them I'd never heard before. She wasn't talking like a mother worried about her son, she was talking like someone worried about being responsible for him. 3 days later, Emily called. "Hey, so about Sunday dinner?" she started. "Yeah? I think we're gonna have to skip it this week. Things have just been hectic. The kids have sports, and Mike's been swamped at work." "That's fine. We can do it next week. Actually, maybe we should just play it by ear for now. You know, until you've got more stability." More stability. The subtext was clear: until you're worth inviting again. Rachel didn't call at all, not until I ran into her at the grocery store. "Andrew," she said, smiling. "How have you been?" "Oh, you know, broke." She laughed like I'd told a joke. "Yeah, well, these things happen." Then she glanced at her watch. "I'm late for an appointment. Let's catch up sometime, okay?" And she was gone. It was exactly the reaction I'd expected, and dreaded. But now the real test began. Every day after work, I'd drive out to the new house. I didn't move in right away. I'd spend an hour there, sitting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee, just being in the space. Then I'd drive back to my apartment, the one my family thought I was barely holding on to. I started keeping notes. Emily posting vacation photos without inviting me. Rachel bragging online about her boutique opening. My parents mentioning family get-togethers I wasn't included in. One Friday night, as I was locking up the new house, I saw headlights sweep across the driveway. It was my father. He stepped out of his old sedan. "Nice place you've got here." I froze. "What do you mean?" Your Uncle Jim saw you here the other day. He stepped closer. So, let me get this straight. You tell us you're broke, but you've got a $500,000 property? I could have told him the truth, but something in his tone stopped me. This isn't what you think, I said. Then what is it? I'll tell you when the time is right. You should be careful, Andrew. People don't like liars. He got back in his car and drove away. 2 days later, Rachel texted. Family meeting. Tonight. When I arrived, Emily sat with her arms crossed, Rachel scrolling her phone, my parents on the couch. My father spoke first. We want to know why you lied. I never said I didn't have a house. I just said I was broke. Same thing, Emily snapped. Rachel leaned in. If you've got that kind of money, why wouldn't you help your family? We've been struggling. There it was, not concern, not curiosity. Just expectation. I looked at each of them, their eyes sharp. They thought they'd caught me in a lie. They didn't realize the real game hadn't even started yet. From that moment, the pressure only built. Emily called more often, her conversations dripping with hints about her mortgage and bills. Rachel was blunt, she wanted me to invest in her boutique. My parents played the long game, suggesting I help them with a down payment for a retirement home. The moment I resisted, their warmth cooled. So I leaned into the role, telling them I might have to sell my car, pretending my situation was worse than it was. I watched carefully. No offers of help. No. We'll get through this. Just silence, and sometimes relief. Then Emily invited me to dinner for the first time since my bankruptcy. Halfway through the meal, she said, if you sold that house, you could help all of us. And still have plenty left. Mike added, family first, right? I realized then this wouldn't stop. They were escalating. If they wanted a reason to believe I was keeping something from them, I was going to give them one. I realized something simple. If my family only wanted to see me as a wallet, I'd let them stare at it long enough until they saw a mirror inside. After that family meeting, I didn't want to defend myself anymore. I decided to act. Not loudly, not with some big reveal. Just small, deliberate shifts that would pull them deeper into their own assumptions. The first thing I did was change the locks on the new house and install a camera above the front porch. Not because I feared burglars, but because I feared stories. Cameras don't lie. Then I bought just enough to make the place look barely lived in, a mattress on the floor, a single folding chair, a kettle, a box of tools. No luxury, nothing that screamed $500,000. If someone happened to come inside, I wanted them to believe this wasn't a home, just a way station between two lives. Next, I let a few facts leak out. A furniture delivery guy left a receipt with my new address in my apartment hallway. I didn't rush to pick it up when Rachel stopped by. I saw her glance at it. Let her know. Let her talk. That same week, I left 2 papers in my glove box. One, the real insurance policy for the house, the other, a mock-up contract for possible property renovation, with a fake company name. If Emily or Mike decided to snoop during a car ride, they'd find it. Sure enough, within days, my phone rang. Rachel. Andrew, be honest. Is that house really yours? I gave a small laugh. Which house? The one you're pretending doesn't exist. Her voice had that edge, not curiosity, but challenge. Why do you care? I asked. Because if you have it, then you have options. And if you have options, you're just letting us all struggle while you, what? Sit on your money? I didn't answer directly. Rachel, I'm still figuring things out. She made a frustrated noise, then hung up. 2 days later, Emily called. No small talk this time. So, the house, are you selling it? I played dumb. What house? Don't do that, Andrew. We know. Mike drove past it. She lowered her voice. If you sold it, you could help Mom and Dad get that retirement place, help me with the mortgage, and help Rachel with her store. You'd still have plenty left over. It was all so matter of fact, as if my life's work was a community chest for them to dip into. I said nothing for a moment, then replied, "I'm not selling anything right now." She sighed, frustrated. "You're not being fair." That's when I realized the beauty of my position. I didn't owe them explanations. I could let their own greed drive the story. So I started adding little things to keep them guessing. I, accidentally, mentioned I was meeting with a property consultant. I'd hint at maintenance costs, without saying what they were for. And each time, I could feel their curiosity growing, their patience shrinking. The turning point came when my parents invited me over for Sunday lunch again. This time, the tone was different, polite, overly warm. Mom kept saying how nice it was to have me there. Dad poured me a second glass of wine. But then, halfway through dessert, Dad cleared his throat. "Andrew, your mother and I have been thinking, maybe you could just put our names on the house. Not permanently, just for security. It would help us with some financing we've been looking at." I stared at him. "You mean make you legal co-owners?" He nodded. "Just temporarily." My mother added, "We're family. We should be looking out for each other." I smiled, but not kindly. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. They wanted in, and they'd take it however they could. That night, driving back to the house, I made my decision. I was going to end this. Not with a fight, but with proof. Proof that they'd shown me exactly who they were when they thought there was something to gain. I waited one more week before putting my plan into motion. In that time, I arranged a dinner at my new house and made sure everyone could come: Emily, Mike, their kids, Rachel, my parents. I told them I wanted to discuss something important about my future. That was enough to get them all there. On the day, I furnished the house just enough to make it look comfortable but understated. No art, no extravagant displays. I cooked a simple dinner, set the table, and waited. One by one, they arrived. I saw their eyes dart around, assessing. Emily's gaze lingered on the kitchen counters. Rachel casually peeked into the living room. My father ran his hand over the banister. We ate with forced small talk. I could tell they were waiting for me to speak. So, halfway through the meal, I put down my fork. "I bought this house in cash 3 months ago." Silence. "I didn't tell you because I wanted to see how you'd treat me if you thought I had nothing." Emily frowned. "That's not fair." "Fair?" I leaned forward. "When I told you I was broke, not one of you offered to help. You pulled away. Calls stopped. Invitations stopped. Rachel, you laughed when I said I was broke. Emily, you told me to play it by ear about seeing the kids again. Mom, Dad, you suggested I get a roommate." My mother's face paled. My father's jaw tightened. "I've spent my whole life building something from nothing. I never asked you for money, never leaned on you. But the second you thought I had nothing to offer you, you vanished. And when you found out about the house, you didn't care why I bought it or what it meant to me. You just wanted in." Rachel crossed her arms. "You're twisting things." I shook my head. "No. I'm seeing things clearly." I reached into my pocket and pulled out an envelope. "This is a document I had my lawyer draft. The house, my savings, my investments, all of it is going into a trust. None of you are beneficiaries." Emily's mouth opened, but no words came out. My father leaned back, his face unreadable. "You've shown me who you are when you think there's money to be had. I can't unsee that. So I'm making sure that, when I'm gone, what I've built goes to people who've actually been there for me." The rest of the meal was eaten in silence. They left one by one, no hugs, no goodbyes. When the door finally closed, I sat alone in the quiet. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I felt free. Sometimes, the only way to see someone's true nature is to give them a choice, and watch what they do when they think you're not looking.